Girlfriend excluded me from a concert even after I showed interest, and now I'm left scrambling for a plan B. Kinda Music is playing in London in June at Gunnersbury Park. My girlfriend, Tina, is a fan and asked if I wanted to go. I said yes. She also FaceTimed her sister Yasmin to confirm she was attending. Yasmin is bringing her boyfriend Jim, and Tina's friend Yvonne is also coming. Yasmin asked Tina to buy tickets. During the call, Tina joked about buying 4 tickets but not confirming who they were for. She said, "Op and I are going, Yvonne is going, I'm not sure who the 4th ticket is for." Over the next few days, Tina repeatedly asked me if I was sure I wanted to go. Each time, I confirmed that I did, as I enjoy their music, even if I'm not as big of a fan as Tina or her friends. I've been intrigued by the hype, and events like this are something Tina and I typically do together. Today, however, her tone shifted. Tina said Yasmin had shown her a new set she thought I might not like. I reassured her I did like their music and asked if she was trying to get me to say I didn't want to go. To my surprise, Tina admitted she'd been thinking it over and decided she'd like to make it a girls' night with Yvonne, as they rarely get the chance to do things like this together. I asked if Yasmin and Jim were still going, which Tina confirmed but said, "I'm not going with them. I don't think I'll see much of them." I felt rejected. Instead of an open and loving conversation, it felt like she drip-fed me hints to manipulate me into not going. She could have said, "I'd like this to be a girls' night, would you mind inviting a friend?" Instead, it felt calculated, and that she didn't want me there. What makes it harder is picturing Tina, Yvonne, Yasmin, and Jim having fun without me, and not only not missing me but actively having arranged for me not to be there. I actually did what Tina suggested earlier and listened to their latest set to make sure I would like it, only to be hurt more when I was temporarily made to be even more excited for the event only to then realize I had to find someone who actually wanted to go with me. I also sort of don't want to go on my own or with anyone else because I feel like I'll be in my head about whether Tina is having more fun without me and it'll ruin the experience. Tina has since apologized for the way she handled it and admitted that she should have just been honest and direct, but something still isn't sitting right with me about essentially being excluded from this event. She did say in passing that perhaps I should invite 2 other friends, a couple. Interestingly enough, she assumed they would come as an item even though we seemingly do not, and go with them, but her not wanting to spend this time with me is hurting. We do have other plans lined up, a trip in December and another event in June 2025, so this isn't a pattern of exclusion. Still, I can't shake the hurt, especially since I'm used to us doing things like this together. Update 1. After a bit of reflection time, Tina offered a sincere apology and said in hindsight she'd handled it very poorly. She said I was more important in her life than any gig, and rather than risk causing any more upset she wasn't going to go. I was grateful for the reassurance. I did think that closer to the time we could likely pick up some resale tickets cheap if we changed our mind, but for the most part, in my current headspace, I figured going to the event would just be a painful reminder of a time I wasn't wanted, so I would likely rather skip it and try to forget it altogether. The ticket date came and went and I wondered if Tina had bought tickets. I stopped myself from asking her though, and decided to trust her word from the night prior that she wasn't going to. We patched things back up and got pretty much back on track. You can probably guess what happens next. A little later I asked how Yvonne took the conversation around tickets, and she was a little evasive saying we've already had this conversation. She said I handled it really badly etc. I asked her outright if she'd bought tickets, and she hesitated, before confirming she'd bought 3, 1 for her, 1 for Yvonne, 1 for me. Her view is that we have these very hard to come by tickets for the future now should we decide to go, and if I'm not comfortable she would simply sell them. My view is she had 2 options. 1. Risk not getting tickets, but no risk to upsetting me. 2. 0 risk on tickets, but small chance of upsetting me. She chose option 2 and risked upsetting me, breaking her promise from the night previous. I feel like she's putting this event ahead of me. She assures me that's not the case, and that buying the ticket and including me was a loving gesture. I'd have every right to be pissed off if the evidence showed her buying 2 tickets, but because it was 3, I should accept this came from a place of love. I asked why if it was so loving she didn't tell me at the time. She said because we had been arguing. I asked why make the commitment one day before to not buy tickets only to then do it. She said she reflected and changed her mind because we might all want to go. Update 2. Okay, for context, we're both mid-30s. We've been dating around just under a year. From the get-go, I knew she took drugs. I'm not a stranger to them myself. We had a conversation very early on. She confirms that she quite enjoys them on certain nights out. I said that I had enjoyed them more in the past but still took part very infrequently. In the past couple of months we've been to things together where we've taken a bit of MDMA together and generally had a good time. I do have a bit of an issue with coke. I know 2 people who've died from it. I've taken it myself and always thought the negatives far outweigh the positives, and I've seen people do some pretty sketchy stuff when they're on it, so I'm pretty averse to it. She's had some horrible controlling partners in the past. I've been cheated on in the past, one so with multiple APs, pretty much from day one. I found out over a horrible drip-feeding realization that continued even after the relationship ended. Recently our relationship has been pretty off. We're in different cities at the moment and we argue a lot, mostly just silly communication things, but still we're susceptible to falling out a bit. Nothing has been particularly monumental to be relationship-ending stuff, and for the most part our fallouts are caused by us both wanting the same thing, the relationship, but communicating our needs poorly. We had a night out together recently and she took a bit of MDMA. I had a suspicion when she got back from the toilet, and asked her and she confirmed. I said that I was a little disappointed because we had an agreement to tell each other these things before we did them, not after. She apologized. The night was good. I decided not to partake. That night at the hotel we had a bit of a blowout about drugs in a relationship, trust etc. She expressed that she should be trusted to do these things, and that she knew that if she took coke on a night out that I would likely be really hurt by it. I said that the trust element was more important than the coke element, but did say I didn't like coke, found it icky thinking of her doing it, and know a lot of people who fucked up relationships by doing it. She has done coke 5 times this year and assures me she only does so in very small amounts. On the journey back we'd been texting about our relationship. I communicated that I need to see that she can stick to her word. I said I need to see that she remembers the things that she's told me that she'll do and follow through to them. That trust and keeping our word is the most important thing to me in a relationship. This was off the back of the thing the night before, off my experience with my ex, and off the back of a few other conversations recently. She was very concerned that the relationship wasn't in as great of a place as it has been, and feels we perhaps both have been self-sabotaging it as it's starting to get more serious. We spoke on the phone when I got off the train and she told me that plans to see a friend for her birthday had come to fruition. She'd previously thought the friend would be too unwell. Our conversation around the relationship was cut short. I still wanted to offer more reassurance. She said that if her friend, notorious coke user, had a bag that she wouldn't partake. I was grateful. The night got off to a start and she texted to say her friend did have a bag, and that admittedly she was a little tempted, but she wouldn't because she knows how important it is to me. Over the course of the next 2 hours, she repeatedly said that she might do it if it was okay with me. I said I'm not making that decision for her, that she knew the pros/cons either way, she knew the likelihood of it causing hurt, reminded her of all that she'd said the night previous, and reminded her that just hours ago she'd told me I was more important. She decided to do it. Told me before doing so, told me after doing so, and committed to keeping me updated through the night. Admittedly, I went to a really bad place. It reminded me of my cheating ex, who also used coke, and how I would be drip-fed information or if things changed suddenly on nights out. My head went to a place where if she was prepared to prioritize cocaine use over safeguarding our relationship, what else is she prepared to do? Anyway, I couldn't sleep all night, until I knew she was home safe. Her night out, bars, ended around 1 a.m. but she went back to the friend's house until 7 a.m. Coke consumption apparently stopped at 3 a.m. I was beside myself with completely irrational thoughts after the trust was broken, like has she taken a guy back there, could they invite guys around later, what if they ordered more and the dealer did something horrible to them? What if one of them suffered a heart attack or health complication? Very invasive thoughts, and I'm not proud to say I was really quite needy in terms of texting her etc. It genuinely was all innocent enough, just the two of them sat chatting and dancing and apparently being quite positive about me/our relationship. I sent her a message in the morning explaining how upset I was that she'd acknowledged how important not doing it was to me, then decided to do it anyway. Predicting my pain then doing the thing that would inflict it. I said I wasn't expecting her to give up drugs for life, but just hoping she'd been a little more sensitive to the relationship dynamic at that moment and make a decision for us rather than her. She called me like 15 times when she woke up. I was still asleep, not having got to sleep until circa 7 a.m. Text me saying how sorry she was, and when we finally spoke on the phone said that she was consumed with regret. She asked me if I could forgive her and I said I could, but that I couldn't go back to that headspace ever again, and if ever there was a specific promise made by her, with a connection to me/the relationship I won't do X because you're more important that she broke, I would likely be gone. She texted me saying she had made the decision never to do coke again. I had said to her the night before not to make this promise as it will feel hollow, and she said similar before when she's hungover, which never comes to fruition. Don't get my hopes up and say you'll never do it again. I asked that she not commit to that in this state and instead give it some real consideration before saying she was going to do something, rather than risking breaking another promise. Whereas her text said I will never touch the stuff again and you are more important than drugs, the most important. She has since adjusted this to clarify that it is only coke that she is swearing off, not other drugs, MD for instance, because you've never had a problem with that. Anyway, in the days following she has not necessarily withdrawn her apology, but she thinks that I overreacted a little, and seems concerned that I will now an issue with her going on nights out, and has said that she's worried about me finding an opportunity to end things if she breaks the tiniest little promise in the future. She asked what the repercussions would be if, for instance, having sworn off coke now, we decided in a year or so's time when the trust had been rebuilt to reintroduce it into our lives. I gave up all drugs when I was in my past relationship, of circa 20-10 years, and I think she's worried I'm going to expect to do the same in this one. My partner asked me to and I obliged because I saw that the relationship had potential and narcotics have zero net gain, so it was an easy choice. I've said it feels like coke and going out are more important to her than I am. She said that she doesn't want to relinquish her autonomy and that she feels I'm being controlling, and should be paying more attention to how loyal she is as a partner, basically saying you're acting like I cheated and telling me with her friends. Assistance and proof in terms of screenshots between her and her friend how she essentially refuses to interact with men on nights out now. Essentially look, I slipped up, but it isn't an indicator that I'm going to cheat. I can't get my head past that moment in the night where she must have thought this is going to hurt him / have implications, but I'm going to do it anyway and face the consequences tomorrow. I don't know if my past is making this way worse than it needs to be, or if this broken promise really is a big deal. AIO? Update 3. We had some issues toward the end of last year. They got worse before they got better, and we nearly called it quits at the end of January. But, then they did get better. We've had some really lovely times since. A lot of the issues, me feeling like I wasn't a priority in her life, went away, or at least were muted. A lot stayed. We argued, on average every 9 days. The thing I find toughest is that most of the arguments are rooted in insecurity. On the deepest level, she's just scared that I'll leave, and would seemingly rather either control that herself or at least perpetually test me to see if I'm safe. Perhaps it's easier to live with having blown the thing up yourself than facing what it feels like to have someone decide you weren't enough. I just wish I could have made her feel safe enough. I know she couldn't help it. That's the toughest part. She just wanted to be nice, to be good, to feel safe. I really wish it could have worked. For clarity, I left her. The final disagreement was she sent me a sexy photo and then got very upset when I said I'd reciprocate the following day. Apparently I should have instantly replied with one, I just wasn't feeling too great, and she sent it on once view, so I could barely get in the mood before I thought best to reply and tell her how sexy she looked. I get it's not great sort of forcing someone into that, but for me more than anything it was just another argument that didn't need to happen. The straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. She later said her actions made her feel disgusted. She begged for another chance. I stayed strong. But then she asked if we could talk hours later, and when I agreed she said she'd given it some thought and we should break up. I guess that helps her process it. It's been amicable since. Her being level-headed and sorting out logistics makes me miss the version of her that isn't volatile and wonder what could have been. It's tough. I'm not even sure what I want from this post. Update 4. Well, a lot's happened since the last time I updated. This is one of those sequences where, in the middle of it, you suspect you'll look back and realize it was a real turning point. This is the moment it all shifted type thing. But right now it's just messy and exhausting and sort of fascinating in its own way. So, after the amicable logistics chat, things stayed mostly chill for a week or two. There were some wistful texts back and forth, just, the hope you're doing okay and I miss chatting to you about weird food news kind of stuff. For the most part, I kept it light, and so did she. We even had a ridiculous laugh about one of our old running jokes when a mutual friend posted something on Instagram, which, embarrassingly, did chip off a chunk of the slow progress I was making on moving on. But I left it at that. I then got a message from Yasmin, her sister. It was out of the blue. Yasmin and I have never really messaged privately, but she said she was worried about Tina. Apparently, after our breakup, Tina told the group she was fine, threw herself into planning new things, super busy summer vibes as Yasmin put it, but she'd been acting really strangely. According to Yasmin, Tina pulled the plug on a weekend in Paris everyone was super excited for. She was so up and down, on edge, canceling and then recommitting to plans, losing her phone for a day at a time. She wasn't replying in the group chat, except for sporadic memes at 4 a.m. I had my own stuff going on. I'm not going to lie, there's a part of you during a breakup that wants to stay the hell away from your ex's emotional tornado. But when Yasmin told me Tina had also privately messaged Jim, her boyfriend, a kind of chaotic apology for being a bad sister and then ghosted, I did get pretty concerned. Cut to 2 days later, Tina messaged me. It was different from her usual. Not joking, not playing anything off, not even especially sad or self-pitying. Just a short, very open note, are you free to talk? I think I've messed up a few things. It's not about us, promise, I'm just really not in a good place and I want to be honest with you about some things if that's okay. We talked that evening. I was braced for, I'm not sure. More drama? Maybe something relating to all the old issues, trust, drugs, drama with her mates. But what actually happened was, in its own way, crazier because it was so calm, and more honest than we'd been in months. Turns out Tina had pretty much hit the wall. She said the end of our relationship kicked off a weird sense of freedom and guilt at the same time. She'd started going out more, not in a party every night way, but she found herself reaching for any distraction. She was honest about drugs, she'd done MDMA and coke again, and while she still swore up and down she wasn't spiraling, she said something shifted in how she saw that whole scene. She said, it's like I was trying to force having a good time around people who wanted things for me, that I didn't actually want for myself anymore. Then I realized that's sort of how I was treating us too. She apologized for everything, the tickets mess, the testing and constant arguing, the whole run of things that turned love into auditioning for each other's trust every week. She said she'd told everyone, Yasmin, Yvonne, Jim, about all our arguments, and then would alternate between defending me and blaming me, even when she didn't know what she believed herself. Apparently, some of the friends started getting mad at her for not moving on from your relationship even when you were both in it. Oof. But then, she said something even more surprising. She was considering rehab. Not because she felt addicted in the classic sense, she could, mostly, take or leave the drugs, but because, in her words, I can't trust my own deals with myself anymore, and it's not fair on anyone, least of all me, to keep making promises I'll break. Her therapist, I didn't even know she had one, had helped her come to this bombshell. We talked for an hour, mostly just about what rock bottom means for different people. I told her honestly I'd been angry, and I'd also been unfair, and that sometimes loving someone with all their chaos is more about holding the line for yourself than holding out hope they'll become less chaotic for you. She surprised me again, told me she'd started writing everything down, journaling to the point of embarrassing herself, to try to figure out why she was always waiting for the next thing to go wrong. Before she hung up, she said she wanted my blessing. Not for anything romantic, but for the idea that our time together wasn't wasted just because it didn't end happily. She said, I learned from you what I'm capable of hurting, and that I'm not actually safer alone if alone just means avoiding the truth. I said she had it, of course. And then, get this, 2 days later, she texted me a screenshot of the Eventbrite ticket resale page for Musik, the original cause of this mess. She had sold all the tickets. Under the chat, she just put, starting fresh. Sold the tickets, not the memories. It's weird. For all the heartbreak and anger, and, let's face it, my own slightly obsessive tendency to overthink every message, I realized I finally wasn't waiting for a bombshell apology or a grand gesture. For the first time since all this started, I actually felt a kind of peace. I accepted she's on her own wild journey, and, mad as it sounds, maybe so am I. As for the gig at Gunnersbury Park, Yasmin ended up going with just Jim and another mutual friend. They sent a photo of the group smiling in the setting sun. And I felt, honestly, not jealousy, just a strange relief. For the first time in months, I was happy for other people's uncomplicated good vibes. Tina messaged me last night, I booked a yoga retreat in Spain. No MD, just as much paella as I can eat. If I come back a hippie, you have to promise not to laugh. I kind of hope she does. Update 5. About 3 weeks after the last update, I had a run-in with Yasmin, of all people. Total fluke, a mutual friend's birthday drinks at a grimy but lovable North London pub. Most of the crowd was from Tina's wider circle, so the event was a little like a walk through my relationship's past, faces I knew from double dates, house parties, blurry afters where I'd sat on kitchen tiles and debated Berlin club culture with their mates. Yasmin spotted me immediately and came over, hugging me like I was a returning soldier. You're still standing. She grinned. There was something else in her eyes, though, a sadness, or maybe just exhaustion. We caught up a bit awkwardly at first, then with surprising candor as the rounds of Guinness went by. I learned Tina had flown off to her yoga retreat after a brief, uncharacteristically emotional farewell to her sister. Normally they trade in sarcasm, not soppy speeches. Yasmin said, honestly, I think she finally got scared enough of feeling nothing, the literal numbness, you know, to let herself feel everything for once. Then, things got weirder. Yvonne was supposed to be at the birthday but wasn't. According to Yasmin, she and Tina had a huge falling out before the retreat. Apparently, Yvonne had confronted Tina about her disappearing acts, uncalled absences, last-minute ditching of plans, ignoring messages for days. At the core of it, Yvonne thought Tina was self-sabotaging, and, Yasmin's words, using her friends to fill a hole only she could actually patch up herself. There were some hard truths exchanged, and Tina, to her credit, or maybe not, didn't fire back, just went silent for a week and then left for Spain. Yasmin told me in a soft voice that the split had shaken their whole group up, not out of anger, but out of some weird hopeful caution, as if they all suddenly realized boundaries could, actually exist. A few days went by. And, inevitably, Tina sent me a picture from the retreat, a windswept selfie, goofy grin, ludicrously luminous sunlight. She appeared, for the first time in recent memory, entirely relaxed. Her message, however, was the kicker: I decided to stay an extra week. Can't believe I'm saying this, but every morning I wake up not thinking of disaster scenarios. Today, for the first time since forever, I didn't even look at my phone until noon. She started giving me dispatches from her new, slightly bizarre daily routine: sunrise yoga in a stone courtyard, local grandmothers teaching them to cook tortilla, a random Canadian roommate who tried to explain her entire love life via tarot cards. My biggest high has been successfully flipping a potato omelet in the pan, she wrote one morning. All that and no come down. But then things got real. On her second week, Tina described a moment where, standing in front of a group of total strangers during a group exercise, she admitted out loud that she was really good at destroying things right before they get good. The others went around and shared variations of the same story. It was equal parts mortifying and freeing, she said. No performance, just people laughing at themselves, not each other. Meanwhile, back in London, Yvonne texted me one afternoon. I didn't expect it. She'd never messaged me, ever. I heard Tina wrote to you. She probably told you about our argument. I just want you to know, I still care about her. I just couldn't keep wiping up her messes. She needed proper space, for once. A day later, a handwritten letter, from Spain, postmarked with a dramatic choreo stamp, slipped through my letterbox. Tina. She'd never written to me before, the handwriting was a mess. She said she finally understood why people in movies go away to find themselves. It wasn't so much about changing what you do, but about finally looking at yourself when there's nobody there to tell you who you are. She wrote that she was sorry for constantly testing my love, for mixing up adrenaline with affection, using apologies as get-out-of-jail cards, dragging me into every inner battle as if I could win them for her. And then, she said, if you ever want to talk as friends, real friends, I'd love that. If not, I promise to cheer you on from Spain or wherever I end up next. A week later, she returned to London. And in the most uncinematic, authentic way, we met for a coffee. It wasn't emotional torture, or romantic tension. It was easy, in that fierce way only post-heartbreak friendships can be. She looked healthier. We laughed about her potentially criminal tortilla, compared notes on which yoga poses are basically medieval punishments, and then parted ways with a big, real hug. It's now been 2 months since then. We text here and there. Yvonne and Tina are slowly patching things up. She showed up, surprise, at Yasmin's birthday with a card and an apology. Tina's started her own ceramics class. It's like therapy, but at the end you get a lopsided mug. The kind of music drama? It's a punchline, a shorthand for when something spirals totally out of control for no good reason. As for me? I realized I'd been waiting for some dramatic ending to confirm my life could move on, some closure, without leftovers. Instead, what I'm getting is messier, unfinished, unresolved, and, for the first time, absolutely okay. I'm learning sometimes the aftermath is the story. Update 6. If you'd told me, when the whole Kind of Music ticket fiasco began, that fast-forwarding half a year would land me on a Saturday afternoon with Tina, not my girlfriend, not my nemesis, not my regret, but my accidental partner in philosophy, I would have assumed you'd been overdoing the yoga breathing. And yet, here we are. Let me rewind. It's late September now. London is mostly rain, leaves in gutters, and that peculiar itch everyone gets for starting afresh the moment schools come back in session. I'm living in a new flat share in Hackney, the kind you rent for the overgrown houseplants, drafts, and the quieter kind of drama, the flatmate with a mysterious boyfriend, the endless voter registration forms. Life ambles along. Occasionally, Tina will send me photos of her latest misshapen ceramic monsters. Sometimes she'll tease me for my tragic attempts at meal prep, and sometimes she'll just send a voice note from her walks along Regent's Canal, where the only substance in her system is bad oat milk cappuccino. But, and here's the new turn, about a month ago Yasmin invited both of us, to my absolute shock, to her and Jim's engagement drinks. Maybe it shouldn't have surprised me. Reconciliation is Yasmin's spiritual sport. That woman could negotiate an OPEC deal with her eyes closed and a baby in each arm. What did surprise me is that both Tina and I, separately, considered not going and then, separately, showed up anyway. The evening itself is almost comedically undramatic, which, for once, makes it cinematic. Yvonne is there, she and Tina exchange a quick squeeze of the hand, a kind of truce handshake that communicates more than any apology could. Tina and I spend most of the night at opposite ends of the room, only occasionally drifting into overlapping circles. At one point, Jim, grinning, whiskey in hand, leans over and says, "If either of you try to throw a drink, go outside. This new carpet cost a fortune." But there are no ghosts or grenades. At most, there are a couple of wry jokes. Yvonne raises her glass at one point and says, "Here's to nights out that don't require a group crisis strategy." Everyone laughs, including us. Partway through the night, Tina makes her way over. She's wearing a vintage paisley dress, her hair still sunshine-tinged from Spain. She hands me a crinkled envelope. I open it. Inside is a tiny, lopsided clay mug, absurdly small, espresso for a mouse, maybe. "Your closure cup," she says. "For tiny doses only." Something shifts in me. There's no sadness, no spike of nostalgia. Instead, I feel what I imagine ex-smokers feel watching other people light up, that odd sense of "I'm glad I'm not there," mixed with "I hope you enjoy yourself." What happens next is, frankly, strange. A few days after the party, Tina reaches out, tentatively, with a pretty bold proposition. "Would you want to come to a meeting? Not AA or nah. Something else." I'm naturally nosy, she knows this, so after some gentle badgering, she reveals it's a radical accountability workshop. Think group therapy, but everyone actually wants to be there. Scary, I know. Turns out, her therapist recommended it after hearing about the endless cyclical dramas. Her words, not mine, Tina messaged, with several eye-rolling emojis. Weirdly, I agree to come along, half for her, half out of curiosity about this odd evolution of our dynamic. The session is run in a cozy room above a coffee shop. There are beanbags, stupid notebooks, even basil plants. And a roster of attendees who, by their own admission, have all staged at least one minor train wreck in the last year. I suppress a laugh when I realize that, if anything, we're underqualified. We spend an hour listening to people confess, own, and diffuse their own messes. Tina shares, "I stopped keeping score of other people's failures, and especially my own." It's weird, but kind of freeing. I find myself, to my shock, opening up too, not about her, but about how resolution never feels quite as neat as the headlines in your own diary. After, we walk along the canal. Neither of us tries to dissect the past. Tina talks about starting a podcast, mismanaged expectations, just ordinary people oversharing in creative ways, and she asks if I'd ever dare guest on it. I laugh and say I'll only do it if she can keep straight faces through her intro. That evening, something new happens. We don't text obsessively when apart. There's no magic cure, no, and then that turns us back into something we weren't. But she does send me, unprompted, a picture of a completed, mercifully upright mug, her new masterpiece, caption, "See, I can finish things. Also, I'm charging you next time." Meanwhile, Yvonne joins a new running club, Yasmin is neck deep in wedding Pinterest boards, and Jim, because the British never truly change, keeps sending me memes about the Arsenal midfield. There's no bombshell. No perfect closure, no lightning version of peace. Just the slow, real emergence of what everyone, Tina, me, Yvonne, seem to need. Boundaries, a proper truce not only with each other, but with ourselves. I still wake up some days missing something, I can't name what, exactly, maybe adrenaline, maybe the easy intensity of a relationship that's gone wrong enough times to feel almost familiar. But mostly, what I feel is lighter. Turns out, the most radical thing you can do is not try to solve everything. To just exist in the aftermath and, now and then, finish your mug, text your ex, and forgive yourself for ever thinking. Closure had a finish line.